Hey Guardians, I just want to let everyone know that I do have both a Twitch and a Twitter, and I'm very active on both. Feel free to come give me a follow on both, links in the description.
So just like don't aim down sight, like don't just like
No way.
huh.
That's a 2-burst.
Oh,
That's no Flint Striker, no Radiant, no like kill clip, no surges.
OP.
Alright, y'all, we need to talk about the weapon stat. This is important enough that I decided to take a quick break from my power level grind to look into it. Now, a friend and I spent a little over an hour or so in private matches so I could test how the damage bonus from the weapon stat was affecting forgiveness and base TTKs, which of course is the footage you're seeing in the background right now. I'm going to talk about what we found, how it feels out in the wild, and give my general thoughts on how it's affecting PvP at the moment. So, a couple things to note, I stayed at 200 weapon stat the entire time just for the sake of simplicity. However, on certain weapons you do not actually need to go all the way up to 200 to see a shift in your base TTK. An example of this would be Agape. The heavy burst hand cannon from Kepler will 2-burst from neutral with precision instrument at around 120 to 130 weapon stat. We also did notice a rather odd bug where in one of our matches it was giving us the bonus damage from a 200 weapon stat even if we were under 200. We only had it happen once and only tried to replicate it once unsuccessfully, but it was still rather odd nonetheless. And also a number of the new stats such as health are not functioning properly at the moment. I'm not sure if the weapon stat is among these, but if it is, then this could all change, so keep that in mind. Then lastly, we're also going to talk a little bit about PvE, but this will be a PvP focused video. Now, in our testing, while there are still plenty of weapons that don't really receive any real benefit purely from the weapon's bonus damage, such as 140 hand cannons, which still need to 3 crit at base, we were actually still surprised at how many weapons did see a substantial TTK and or forgiveness shift at base or with the help of a non-kill or ability damage booster such as precision instrument. And it's particularly influential given that resilience no longer exists, and as a result, resilience gating no longer exists either. Now, some examples of what we found include again Agape with PI can 2-burst, then the Prosecutor auto rifle can now kill in 6 crits, whereas before it was 7 crits at tier 7 resilience or above, and 6 crits 1 body at 6 or below. Peace Bond, the Iron Banner sidearm, was 2-bursting from neutral. Granted, I do have Headseeker on my Peace Bond, but I was landing all crits anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Next up, Multi-Mach was killing in 10 crits when it used to be 11 crits at 6 resil or below, and 11 crits 1 body at 7 or above. A box-breathing hung jury was killing in 2 crits and 1 body shot, whereas before it was 3 crits. Then Breachlight was killing in 4 crits, when before it was killing in 3 crits, 2 body at tier 7 resil or under, and 4 crits, 1 body at tier 8 or above. Then one last example, 180 hand cannons were also killing in 3 crits, whereas before it was 2 crits and 2 body shots. And while this is not a neutral perk, Ace with Mori is able to 1 crit and 2 body again. It's not quite a 2-tap, but it's extremely close. Close enough that if you were Radiant, it would likely be an easy 2-tap. So you can imagine what other hand cannons with something like Kill Clip, a BXR with Kill Clip, or Redrix with Kill Clip or Sword Logic would look like there. So yeah, the weapon stat overall is very, very potent, more so than it really should be. A little extra forgiveness would be one thing, but free TTK shifts for doing nothing other than just existing is just way too much. Now, obviously, I do imagine that at some point Bungie will tone the damage down, but keeping in mind how long it typically takes Bungie to make adjustments in PvP, we could be stuck like this for weeks, if not months. So the weapon stat is hard meta right now. Personally, I would say for 6s, you want to go max weapons, or at least as high as you need to get a potential TTK or forgiveness shift in your weapon of choice, and as high a health stat as you can. Then for 3s, such as Comp or Trials of Osiris, you'd want to go weapons and super. Now, let's talk a little bit about how PvP is feeling right now given this new development. The first thing I'll note is in my time playing some PvP, I've actually had a pretty fun time for the most part. While the weapon stat is for sure too potent and is very noticeable inside of matches, and with ammo crates making special ammo still way too common, with the new stat system, the amount of ability spam has actually been cut drastically. Now, of course, this is partially because hardly anyone has high tier armor right now, meaning all of our stats are going to be a little bit scuffed. This is also likely because with how things are currently, I would say most people are going to be speccing into either weapons or health. This meant I was actually having a pretty good time in PvP, purely because I wasn't constantly being met with a barrage of abilities every time I tried to take a gunfight. Now, this is not as good as OG Checkmate's 50% ability cooldown penalty, and certain abilities are for sure still way too strong or just generally annoying, but it does still feel better than before. Now, as far as my general feelings on this, let me start by saying that the weapon stat is for sure too strong. Like I said before, I wouldn't mind if it only gave a boost in forgiveness, but a TTK shift from neutral on really any weapon is just too much. So the stat does, objectively, need to be toned down. Really, something Bungie should have learned from the target lock metas with Immortal, Unending Tempest, and later on Prosecutor is that anything that gives free damage for free ultimately hurts PvP. At the same time, I'm actually a little bit torn. If people are speccing into weapons, then that means there's fewer abilities, which means I can play a little more aggressively because I'm not constantly having a bunch of bullshit thrown at me anytime I try to make a push. And while special ammo still does pose a problem, close quarters engagements are more viable now as well, purely because if you close distance on an opponent, there's a significantly smaller chance that they can just throw grenades or melees at you. So while the weapon stat needs to be toned down, Bungie does need to be extremely careful about how they do it. The weapon stat does need to stay potent in order to keep the Mario Kart nonsense down in PvP, because quite frankly, if you gave me the choice between where we are now with the weapon stat or where we were with abilities before the weapon stat, I'll take where we are now 10 out of 10 times, no question. Now, the damage aside, one thing that I do love about the weapon stat is that it helps your handling and reload speed, and you don't need to be above 100 to get those benefits. And I do think that's a good thing, because this does give us a way to build into our weapons performance. Handling and reload speed are also so insanely important if you're trying to play more aggressively. So I will say I don't think those benefits should be touched in any way, shape, or form. This game plays slowly enough in the current sandbox as is, and so a bonus to handling and reload speed is a good thing. Now, of course, again, we're in a brand new DLC, Bungie's still tweaking things, and the PvP meta hasn't really been determined yet, but the damage stat, again, in PvP specifically, does need to be toned down. Now, very briefly talking PvE, while again, I've been rather disconnected from the PvE world for some time now because, quite frankly, 90% of Destiny's PvE bores me, and while the weapon stat is extremely strong inside of PvE, I actually found it kind of refreshing inside of that side of the game. One thing that I've talked about before is that one of the issues Destiny's had for a very long time now is that unless you're one of the very few people doing something like low man raids, your weapons often feel like they don't matter very much inside of PvE purely because your abilities are going to carry you through most activities anyway. Like, one of the most potent builds I've ever used was one that Cammy showed me involving double area denial GLs, an Eager Edge Sword, Synthos or a Synthos class item, and Prismatic Titan with Consecration. In that build, the GLs were purely there to get you to Transcendence faster, and I mean exponentially faster, so that you could proceed to just Consecration your way to victory. And using this build with our brains completely turned off, we were running easy sub 10 minute GMs, and all but maybe a few of our kills came from Consecration. And over the years, particularly the last 3 or so since Subclass 3.0 came out, we've seen countless examples of this, such as Starfire Protocol, Sunbracers, Warbanner Titans, Star Eater's Hunter, the list goes on and on and on and on. But with the weapon stat, it does make my weapons feel more important, and it provides some variety because it opens up the door to builds centered specifically around juicing your weapons. Now, is it too strong in PvE? I mean, Maybe, probably, and in my case, I personally don't care that much either way because I get my PvE fix from other games now, but even so, it's a nice option to have purely for the sake of variety. So those are my thoughts on the weapon stat in Edge of Fate. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that like button, leave me your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button and check the description for my other links. For now, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, Guardians.